There are no chains stronger than the ones forged in the mind. And there are no limits more dangerous than the ones a man accepts without questioning. The man who believes he has reached the edge of his potential is not a realist, he is a prisoner of inherited thoughts, of recycled fears, of unexamined emotion. He walks with chains you cannot see, but you can feel them every time he hesitates, reacts, avoids, or doubts. But I am here to tell you in no uncertain terms that these limits are not final. They are not absolute. They are not written in stone. They are illusions. They are lies. They are the shadowy residue of years lived in reaction instead of in command. And the only way to break them, not just escape them temporarily, but destroy them forever, is by developing spiritual habits. Not religious routine, not external ritual, but inner discipline, psychological fortification, spiritual posture. These are not habits of convenience, these are habits of conquest. They are not taught in classrooms because they cannot be memorized. They are not passed down through genetics because they are earned through fire. These habits are the daily rituals of men who refuse to be ruled by anything other than principle. These are the laws followed by men who are not trying to win, they are trying to become. And if you will hear me now, if you will silence every lesser voice inside of you and listen not with your ears, but with your will, then you will walk away with a new foundation. Because this speech is not designed to motivate you. It is designed to awaken you. It is designed to strip away every excuse that has made your limits feel like facts. It is designed to reveal that what you call your personality is simply your practiced identity. It is designed to show you that every ceiling you've accepted is made of nothing more than your refusal to confront yourself. And now, we confront. Habit 1. Speak to yourself like a commander, not a victim. Most men are loyal to their weakness. They reinforce it daily. They say, I've always struggled with that. That's just the way I am. I get triggered easily. I overthink everything. And they say these things with pride, as if confession is transformation, as if awareness alone can replace action. But I say to you, you will never rise above the way you speak to yourself. Your mind listens to your mouth. Your subconscious obeys your dominant internal tone. Your emotions follow the stories you repeat. So speak with authority. Speak with instruction. Speak like a man who is not waiting to be rescued, but one who is under direct orders to rise. You must become your own commander. Because if you are not, then your emotion will be. Your history will be. Your comfort will be. And none of those care about your future. The voice inside your head must become your strongest ally, not your first traitor. Habit 2. Choose detachment over drama. There is no power in reaction. There is no dignity in emotional chaos. There is no spiritual maturity in needing to be understood, validated, or liked by those who cannot see your vision. Detach. Not from care, but from control. Detach from the need to fix everything. Detach from the need to explain your every move. Detach from the need to respond to every whisper of disrespect. The emotionally detached man is not indifferent, he is disciplined. He does not leak energy in every direction. He chooses where he pours it like a king with limited gold. Because that is what attention is, your spiritual currency. And most men spend it like peasants on gossip, on reactivity, on the emotional needs of people who are not even building anything. Detach, choose calm, choose clarity, choose power over performance. Habit 3. Prepare your mind before the world has a chance to shape it. The first hour of your day is sacred. It is the hour when your subconscious is most pliable. It is the hour when you set the tone, the rhythm, the laws for how your mind will respond to adversity. But most people spend it scrolling, comparing, absorbing, reacting. They let their feed become their focus. They let headlines become their heartbeat. They let messages from others override messages from within. But the spiritual man knows better. He knows that his first thoughts are seeds, and whatever seed is planted in the morning will grow during the day. So he rises, he speaks his code, he commands his state. Before he checks the world, he checks his thoughts. Before he opens the door, he opens the mind and says, This is who I am today. This is not about motivation. This is about mental sovereignty. Habit 4. Stop negotiating with emotion. Emotion is feedback, not law. It is signal, not command. But most men turn every emotion into an excuse. I don't feel like doing it. I'm not in the right headspace. I'm overwhelmed. Emotion may knock, but discipline decides who enters. You must create a system so powerful that it functions regardless of your mood. You must build habits that continue while your emotions scream for you to quit. You must train like the warrior who says, "Yes, I feel it, but I do not serve it." This is how you break personal limits, not by deleting emotions, but by deciding they are no longer your master. Habit 5. Build inner stillness like it's a fortress. Stillness is not passive. It is not the absence of noise. Stillness is spiritual dominance. It is what allows you to think while others react, to observe while others panic, to execute while others explain. You must build your stillness like it is sacred. You must create space in your day where nothing enters, no distraction, no stimulation, no narrative. Because in that stillness, you will hear the voice that matters, not the voice of anxiety, not the voice of your past, but the voice of principle. Stillness is where your higher self sits on the throne. It is where you consult before every major decision. It is where you hear the truth when the world lies to you. Stillness is the weapon of the undefeated. Habit 6. Ruthlessly audit your mental inputs. You cannot plant weeds and grow fruit. You cannot feed yourself fear and expect power. You cannot consume chaos and expect peace. Your mind becomes what you expose it to most. This is not a metaphor. This is law. Spiritual law, psychological law, success law. You must treat your attention like sacred ground. You must guard your inputs like a general guards a fortress. What you watch, what you read, what you hear, they are shaping your thoughts without your permission. Audit your inputs, cut the noise, replace drama with discipline, and then repeat until your mind is a sanctuary, not a circus. Habit 7. Create a personal code and serve it like it's divine. A man without a code will obey whatever emotion is loudest. He will say yes when he should say no. He will over-explain, over-apologize, overcompensate. But a man with a code, he does not ask, "What should I do?" He asks, "What does my code require?" You must define your law, not when it's convenient, before you are tested. I do not react emotionally. I do not explain my standards. I do not seek validation from the unqualified. I do not break my routine for comfort. I do not beg for what I can build. And then you live by that code no matter the weather, the delay, or the resistance. Because the code is your anchor, and the man with an anchor is unshakable. Habit 8. Define success as mastery over self. Success is not applause. It is not income. It is not the image. Success is waking up and obeying your higher self every time. Success is doing the hard thing, especially when no one sees it. Success is hearing the voice of your lesser self and crushing it before it whispers too long. Success is sitting in front of your demons and saying, "You no longer rule here." If your version of success does not begin within, it will always leave you hungry. If it does not begin with discipline, it will end in distraction. If it does not begin with sovereignty, it will end in surrender. Habit 9. Replace hope with intention. Hope is a poor strategy. It waits, it wishes, it delays, but intention is aggressive. Intention says, "I don't need a sign. I am the sign." Every action must be forged in intention. Every hour must be decided in advance. Every thought must be filtered through your goal. This is how spiritual men build real-world results. They do not meditate and wait, they meditate and move. Habit 10. End every day with a war report. You are not just living, you are leading. Leading your mind, leading your habits, leading your energy. And a general does not end the day without reviewing the battle. So neither can you. Ask, Where did I break discipline? Where did emotion rule? Where was I clear? Where did I hesitate? What must die and what must rise before tomorrow? Because until you review yourself, you cannot revise yourself. And until you revise yourself, your limits will remain intact. Until you revise yourself, your limits will remain intact. And that is the tragedy of most lives. Not that they lacked opportunity, but that they lacked the courage to confront themselves. Not that they were cursed, but that they never chose to upgrade their inner standard. Your limits are not reinforced by the world. They are reinforced by repetition, by daily habits of weakness, by unconscious surrender to thoughts you never chose, emotions you never questioned, and patterns you never interrupted. But you are not here for that. You are here because something in you knows there is more. More clarity, more conviction, more power, more stillness, more excellence. Not outside of you, within you. And that more is not earned through wishing. It is built. It is trained. It is forged daily in silence while others are still sedated by excuses. So I ask you now, not softly, but with fire. Will you continue to be a man of reaction or a man of ritual? Will you continue to move by feeling or by code? Will you continue to start your day at the mercy of noise or begin it with non-negotiable stillness? Because no one is coming. There is no more time to waste. There is no more room to carry excuses and excellence in the same soul. You must choose. Choose the spiritual habits that terrify your former self. Choose the habits that stretch you past what you thought was possible. Choose the discipline that empties your weakness from the root. Choose the identity that walks into any room and bends the atmosphere by presence alone. That is what happens when you break your personal limits. You stop trying to get what others have because you become what most men aren't. You stop fighting for your worth because your standard speaks louder than your words. You stop explaining your value because your consistency proves it without debate. But above all, you stop doubting. You stop hesitating. You stop delaying your transformation. Because you now understand, a man's life is not determined by what he wants, but by what he tolerates. And if you tolerate emotional chaos, mental laziness, spiritual weakness, no amount of knowledge, money, or opportunity will save you. But if you, starting now, build these 10 habits like sacred armor, if you train them until they operate even when motivation dies, if you live them when no one is looking, if you hold them like a code etched into the stone of your soul, then the world will not recognize you in 6 months, because you will not be who you once were. You will have destroyed every false layer. You will have buried every soft excuse. You will have ascended not because of chance, but because you earned it in silence. That is what spiritual habits do. They do not improve your life. They replace it. So rise now. Rise with fire in your breath, with silence in your heart, with war in your spine, and with the vow that from this day forward, you will never again live beneath your own power, because you have broken your limits and built yourself to be unstoppable. Now that you have awakened to the habits that shatter personal limits, the question is no longer, what should I do? It is, how far am I willing to go in service to who I must become? For knowledge is only potential. Principles are only theory. Power comes when philosophy is translated into enforcement. You must now become the enforcer of your own laws. The average man creates routines. The superior man creates enforcement. The average man writes a goal. The superior man creates a system of execution so intolerant of failure that deviation is crushed the moment it appears. This is the distinction between desire and demand. Desire is soft. Desire begs. Desire waits for the right time. But demand disciplines. Demand requires. Demand does not negotiate. And that is what your future demands of you now. Not hope, enforcement. Not excitement, enforcement. Not emotion. Enforcement. You cannot rise on emotion. Emotion will fail you. It will fade. It will fluctuate with weather, with news, with mood, with feedback. But enforcement? Enforcement is law. and law must be obeyed. So I ask you, in this exact hour, have you written your inner constitution? Have you crafted a code of conduct so clear, so absolute, so elevated that even your lowest moods must bow to it? Because until you do, you are a man governed by impulse, not principle. And as long as impulse governs your life, your future remains vulnerable at the mercy of whatever feeling happens to be strongest that day. The man who does not govern himself must eventually be governed by others. He must rely on accountability, on pressure, on shame, on consequence. But the man who governs himself, he is free. Free from external discipline because he has internal order. Free from judgment because he has self-correction. Free from reactivity because he has rehearsal. And what is rehearsal? It is what most men never do. Practice calm before the storm. Practice stillness before the provocation. Practice clarity before the pressure. Practice command before the test. You must no longer wait until the world tests you to find your posture. You must choose your posture before the test comes. If you do not, the test will choose it for you. And it will choose poorly. But when you have trained in silence, in solitude, in self-enforcement, then nothing surprises you. You do not panic, you do not flinch, you do not reach for comfort. You reach for your code. That and only that is spiritual maturity. And it is rare. You see, the world respects what it cannot shake. People follow what does not need their applause. And results are drawn to those who have become the law of their own behavior. So I challenge you now. Do not wait to be motivated. Do not wait to be believed in. Do not wait to feel aligned. Do not wait for signs or confirmation or the perfect environment. Act. Decide. Execute. Act like the man who no longer needs reminding. Decide like the man who no longer asks permission. Execute like the man who knows this day may be his last and lives it as a demonstration of his dominance over all former versions of himself. This is not dramatics. This is design. Because what you rehearse, you become. And what you enforce, you embody. Now let us examine the next stage, thought refinement. Most men think in fog. Their thoughts are unfiltered, emotional, inherited, reactive. They carry the residue of childhood wounds, parental fears, cultural conditioning, unchallenged assumptions. They have never examined whether their beliefs are chosen or borrowed. And that is why they remain stuck. Your next transformation does not require more learning. It requires more elimination. Elimination of false assumptions. Elimination of thought patterns that were never yours to begin with. Elimination of mental noise that distorts your power. You must think with precision, with clarity, with rigor. Do not let ideas linger in your mind unchallenged. If a thought does not serve your highest identity, it must be interrogated, judged, and if guilty, executed. Yes, executed. Because there is no neutrality in thought. Every idea is either sharpening your blade or dulling it. Every assumption is either building your future or poisoning it. You must build a mind so clear, so focused, so accurate that confusion becomes impossible. And from that accuracy comes a rare level of energy. Not hype, not excitement, but electric presence. The kind of presence that walks into a room and reorganizes the environment without uttering a word. Because power is not loud, power is aligned. And alignment begins when thought is purified. Let us now ascend one final level, willpower as spiritual armor. The man who knows his mission but lacks willpower will crawl toward his destiny with the speed of a man dragging a chain. The man who possesses will, however pure, trained, directed will, becomes invincible, not because he avoids pain, but because pain becomes irrelevant, not because he always wins, but because nothing, not delay, not defeat, not betrayal, stops him. Willpower is not about effort. It is about authority. Authority over the lesser self. Authority over appetite. Authority over distraction. Authority over comfort. You must become the man whose will is so relentless that the world either moves or breaks. Because the man with willpower has no backup plan. He has burned the boats. He has silenced the noise. He has crossed the line where average men turn back and left no door to return through. That is not extremism. That is excellence. And that is the only standard worthy of the man you came here to become. So I say to you, with the full force of ancient law and modern truth, if you are to break your personal limits, you must become more than motivated, more than inspired, more than interested. You must become transformed by enforcement, by refinement, by sovereignty, by detachment, by will, because the life you were meant for is waiting behind the man you refuse to stop being. Burn him now. Replace him with the one who acts with law in his bones. And never again allow a single day to pass where you live beneath the full weight of your spiritual capacity. Never again allow a single day to pass where you live beneath the full weight of your spiritual capacity. Because this life, this very one, was never meant to be spent bowing to emotion, obeying hesitation, or kneeling before fear. It was meant to be ruled, governed, dominated by the force of a man who has remembered who he is and refuses to forget again. Let the world chase pleasure. Let the crowd seek distraction. Let the average man apologize for his strength. You will become unrecognizable, not by what you say, by what you no longer tolerate, by what you walk away from without a word, by what you build in silence while they gossip in circles. You must become so spiritually fortified that weakness cannot enter you, not through temptation, not through insult, not through praise, not through delay. You do not bend for emotion. You do not explain your evolution. You do not water down your standard to be understood by men who fear discipline. You rise. You rise without applause. You rise without announcement. You rise because something ancient in your blood demands it. Because your spirit was not born for compliance, it was born for conquest. There is no higher virtue than mastery of self. No nobler calling than command over your own mind. No greater force than the disciplined will of a man on fire with purpose. And when the world tests you, you will not need to prepare. Because you have already trained. Because you wake as if every day were a war. Because you carry the presence of one who has already died to who he was and now walks as who he was born to be. And that is the end of limitation. When nothing in you flinches, when nothing in you explains, when nothing in you compromises, and when everything in you moves with the force of spiritual law, self-declared and self-enforced, that is the birth of the indomitable man. The man who commands his thoughts before the world can confuse them, who speaks to his future with the authority of one who owns it, who walks through fire not because he enjoys it, but because he knows no other path is worthy of him. So listen to me now, not as a mentor, but as the mirror. You are no longer allowed to hesitate. You are no longer allowed to explain away your delays. You are no longer allowed to admire strength from afar and deny it to yourself. You are required to rise, to commit, to enforce, to master. You are required by every law of destiny to walk out of the prison of your former identity, to burn the blueprint of mediocrity, to crucify comfort, and to crown the part of you that refuses to bow. Not tomorrow, now, not later. This breath, not when it feels easy, but when you prove that ease is no longer your master. This is the final word. You were never meant to live soft. You were meant to live sovereign. And from this moment forward, you will. Because the war is over. The lesser version of you has lost, and the throne has been claimed by the man you were always meant to be. There exists a truth so powerful, so rarely spoken aloud, that it could alter the very trajectory of your life if you would only dare to internalize it. The man who shines in the crowd is not the one who chases attention, he is the one who commands himself. He is not loud, he is not desperate, he is not impulsive. He is present, disciplined, detached, aligned. And because of that, he cannot be ignored. You must understand deeply, permanently, that in a world drowning in noise, clarity is unforgettable. In a world obsessed with performance, stillness is magnetic. In a world driven by reaction, discipline is divine. If you are to shine in the crowd, it will not be because you tried to outdo them. It will be because you outgrew them. It will be because while they were busy being seen, you were busy becoming someone they would never forget. Let us begin by confronting the first and greatest illusion. You do not need to be noticed to be powerful. You need to be in command of yourself. Because the moment you gain dominion over your mind, your thoughts, your emotional state, you become rare. And anything rare is valuable. And anything valuable cannot be ignored. So I say to you now, without hesitation, and with the full force of eternal law, you do not rise by competing with the crowd. You rise by separating from it. To shine in the crowd, you must become a different order of man. One who is ruled not by instinct, not by mood, not by validation, but by principle, by clarity, by mission. The world will never forget the man who does not bend, the man who cannot be swayed, the man who, in the face of chaos, remains calm, not because he's numb, but because he's trained. And what is the source of that training? It is emotional detachment. It is mental discipline. It is the relentless, silent act of mastering one's inner world. That and nothing less is the foundation of unshakable power. You see, the crowd is reactive. The crowd is desperate to be seen. The crowd performs for applause and dies a little more each day because of it. But the man who rules his reactions, he rises. The man who walks in purpose, he radiates. The man who no longer explains himself, he glows with a kind of fire the world cannot extinguish. Let us define the problem. Most men live in reactivity. They are pushed, pulled, swayed, seduced by every opinion, every delay, every insult. Their minds are not their own. Their emotions own them. Their presence fades the moment they leave the room because they were never truly there. They were not present. They were performing. They were not disciplined. They were distracted. They were not remembered. They were just loud. And loudness never lasts. So the solution is not to become louder. It is to become more anchored. Emotional detachment is not coldness. It is strength. It is the power to observe without absorbing, to hear without reacting, to act without being owned by reaction. If you cannot detach from the emotions of the crowd, you will become a slave to its rhythm. And if you follow the rhythm of the masses, you will die as they do, exhausted, ignored, and forgotten. Let me now introduce to you the first key law of the man who becomes unforgettable, the law of mental sovereignty. To shine, you must think differently. To think differently, you must train differently. You must wake with thought before the world supplies you with noise. You must lead yourself in silence before you lead anyone in the spotlight. The man who does not govern his own mind must borrow his thinking from the crowd. And the crowd never produces leaders. The crowd only rewards conformity and then forgets you the moment your voice fades. But the sovereign mind, the mind that chooses clarity over comfort, thought over impulse, purpose over mood, that mind builds presence. And presence is the substance that outlives performance. Presence is not charisma. It is concentration. It is the quiet, undeniable force of a man who has mastered himself. And I tell you this truth. A man who masters himself becomes unforgettable, not because of volume, but because of vibration. You feel it when he walks in. You sense it when he speaks. You remember it long after he leaves. He does not try to be magnetic. He is, because he has built his power in silence. The second principle you must absorb, not merely hear, but absorb into the marrow of your being, is this. Response is superior to reaction. The man who reacts is owned. He is controlled by the last voice he heard. He is shaped by the last opinion he read. He is governed by mood, by tone, by atmosphere. But the man who responds, he rules. He rules his energy. He chooses his battles. He walks away without apology. He decides when to speak and when to remain silent, because he is not performing for approval. He is executing his principles. And let this be known. The man who no longer reacts becomes immune to control. And the immune man, he is feared, followed, and never forgotten. Let us now build upon a third pillar, the power of calmness. You want to stand out? Be calm, be still in the storm, be composed in the chaos, because calmness is now more rare than intelligence, and rarity is power. And power true, earned, demonstrated power cannot hide. The man who stays calm when insulted is feared by those who seek control. The man who stays calm under pressure is trusted by those who seek leadership. The man who stays calm when others crumble becomes the standard by which others measure their own weakness. And when you become the standard, the metric, you become unforgettable. Because people remember stability, they remember clarity, they remember command. Now let us define the fourth anchor, the principle of thought first. To lead, you must think. To dominate, you must think better. And to shine in the crowd, you must think before they do. Do not speak before you have thought. Do not act before you have calculated. Do not respond before you have checked in with your purpose. Because the man who acts without thinking always serves the man who thought first. And here is a principle you must tattoo into your subconscious. Every thought is either training you or taming you. The moment you think out of fear, you begin shrinking. The moment you think out of emotional attachment, you begin compromising. But the moment you think in alignment with principle, you become untouchable. If you allow emotions to govern your actions, you forfeit your power. But if you command your thoughts, you command your future. And if you command your future, you cannot be ignored. You cannot be replaced. You cannot be forgotten. Because you have built yourself, not for the crowd, but above it. Because you have built yourself, not for the crowd, but above it. And make no mistake, this is not arrogance. This is alignment. This is not superiority. This is sovereignty. The man who is sovereign over his mind, over his emotions, over his habits, he does not belong to the crowd, nor does he seek to impress it. He belongs to principle, and he seeks to embody it. And that is why he shines. The fifth unbreakable law of those who are never forgotten is this. You must master the art of selective energy. Energy is not infinite. Attention is not unlimited. Focus is not eternal unless it is protected. The man who gives his energy to everything will become known for nothing. He will be busy but forgotten, loud but dismissed, visible but hollow. If you wish to be unforgettable, your energy must become expensive. You do not give it away to opinions. You do not give it away to gossip. You do not give it away to what does not build your kingdom. Instead, you conserve it for what matters. You preserve it for what produces. You invest it only where you expect return. That kind of intentionality, that spiritual scarcity of attention makes every movement, every decision, every word you speak resonant. And resonance is remembered long after volume has faded. The sixth pillar is this. You must eliminate the need to be understood. Let that sink in deep to the core of your identity. If your energy is spent trying to explain yourself to the untrained, you will die as they live exhausted, bitter, and average. The man who is unforgettable is not the man who seeks to be understood. He is the man who is too clear to need it. He is the man whose actions do not beg for applause. He is the man whose character removes the need for commentary. You want to know the truth? You were not born to be explained. You were born to be felt. Felt in your presence. Felt in your precision. Felt in the way you say nothing but accomplish everything. Felt in the way you carry yourself without desperation, without apology, without noise. You want to stand out in the crowd? Stop trying to be seen. Start making people feel your discipline. Feel your edge. Feel your standard. The man with no need for explanation walks with authority. And that authority, when backed by discipline, cannot be forgotten. Now let me give you the seventh commandment. Silence is a weapon. Learn to wield it. Every man who speaks too much trains others to ignore him. Every man who reacts too much teaches the world that he is easy to move. But silence? Silence is the language of those who do not explain power, they demonstrate it. and silence is never forgotten. It is remembered in boardrooms. It is respected in conflict. It is revered in chaos because it says, I do not need your agreement. I have already decided. And decision, that kind of conviction, is louder than noise. Which brings us to the eighth law of distinction. Make decision your religion. Do not wander. Do not hesitate. Do not float on the opinions of others like driftwood on a tide of indecision. If you want to shine to be a fixed star in a sky of flickering opinions, you must decide. Quickly, clearly, fully. The man who hesitates becomes invisible, but the man who decides becomes magnetic. He moves like gravity, not because he is better, but because he is anchored. And people feel the difference between those who are anchored and those who are still looking for somewhere to stand. Do not be the man looking for ground. Be the man who walks as if he already owns the foundation of the future. Be definite, in thought, in word, in step, because definiteness of purpose is the birthplace of unforgettable presence. The ninth principle you must live by. Make mastery your identity. Not perfection mastery. Not applause advancement. Not comfort command. You do not need to be the most talented. You need to be the most trained, the most consistent, the most disciplined in the dark, because the man who shines is not the one who wins the crowd once. It is the one who outlasts it. He becomes so good that ignoring him becomes impossible. He becomes so sharp that even those who envy him study him. And he did not get there by chance. He got there because he refused to settle for anything less than daily self-overcoming. So I ask you now, what would happen if you made mastery your identity? Not something you do, but something you are. Not something you chase, but something you enforce. You would stop needing reminders. You would stop waiting for motivation. You would stop explaining your path to the crowd, because you would know you were never here to blend in. You were here to rise, to dominate, to illuminate, not with noise, but with presence, not with reaction, but with restraint, not with talent, but with trained will. And finally, the 10th law, the eternal law. You must choose destiny over validation. Most men will spend their entire lives trying to be seen, but the few, the rare, the dangerous, they spend their lives becoming, not to be noticed, but because they cannot not become. Their mission burns. Their standard burns. Their focus burns so hot that the world cannot stand close without remembering them. That is what it means to shine. Not to flicker, not to flash, but to burn with the intensity of a man who has no other option but greatness. So if you wish to be remembered, do not perform. Do not plead. Do not decorate your weakness with charisma. Build yourself in silence. Master yourself in darkness. And when you enter the world, walk as one who is already crowned, because the world never forgets the man who no longer needs to be seen, to be felt, because the world never forgets the man who no longer needs to be seen, to be felt. He becomes legend not because he shouts, but because he embodies. He does not blend because he was not built to. He does not explain because his results speak in a frequency the crowd cannot ignore. He does not announce because his walk is confirmation. And let this be etched into your memory. The world forgets the loud. It forgets the dramatic. It forgets the temporary. But it never forgets the man who became fire and walked through life without asking for permission to burn. You do not get remembered by fitting in. You get remembered by becoming so rooted in who you are that no circumstance can shake you and no crowd can absorb you. You get remembered because your silence is heavy. Your presence is rare. Your standard is so elevated that being around you demands others rise or retreat. You get remembered because when everyone else played the game of attention, you played the game of transformation. You left the stage and went to war with your former self. You disappeared from their timelines and reappeared in their minds as a symbol of what they could have been, had they chosen discipline, Had they chosen clarity? Had they chosen detachment over ego, mission over mood, code over comfort? You were the one who left the crowd, and that is why you outshone it. Because you made a decision that most men never make. You refused to be ruled. You refused to live emotionally enslaved. You refused to follow a path handed to you by men who forgot their own greatness. And that decision, that rebellion, that sacred uprising of soul is what made you unforgettable. So I ask you now, not for reaction, but for resolve. Are you ready to be unshakable? Are you ready to train until emotional chaos no longer even tempts you? Are you ready to lead your thoughts the way a general leads his troops, with order, with strategy, with the cold fire of one who is done living beneath himself? Then begin. Begin now. Begin without applause. Begin without needing a map. Begin without waiting for the perfect mood. Because if you delay mastery, you delay memory. You delay legacy. You delay becoming what the world will never forget. You must train like a man possessed, not by ego, but by purpose. You must detach like a man who no longer finds comfort in chaos. You must think like a man who understands that every reaction is a betrayal of command. And you must move like a man who already knows. I will not be forgotten, because I have become the kind of man whose very silence will echo in the minds of lesser men. Long after I've left the room, let the crowd chase attention. Let the world play the game of image. You were born for impact. So rise now. Not with noise, but with force. Not with emotion, but with law. Not with hope, but with certainty. Not with demand, but with decision. And when they ask who you are, tell them nothing. Let your presence answer. Let your clarity cut. Let your actions write your name in fire. Because the man who commands himself will always shine in the crowd and never be forgotten. Because the man who commands himself will always shine in the crowd and never be forgotten. But hear this now, and hear it with the seriousness of a man receiving his final instructions. You do not become unforgettable by accident. You do not become immortal in the minds of men by chance. You must earn the right to shine so brightly that even the shadows cannot ignore your existence. This is not the work of a month. It is not the product of a performance. It is the accumulation of choices, brutal, disciplined, often thankless choices made when it would have been easier to quit, to blend, to react, to explain. To become unforgettable, you must bury the version of you that once needed to be seen, and rise as the one who no longer tolerates being invisible to himself. You must develop a relationship with your own essence that is deeper than the world's recognition of your appearance. Because recognition fades, but reverence remains. And reverence is not won in the spotlight, it is forged in the silence. Let the masses chase visibility. Let them shout louder, post more, signal virtue, and measure their relevance by metrics. But you are not chasing metrics. You are becoming method. You are becoming principle incarnate. You are becoming the kind of man whose very footsteps carry the weight of legacy. Let them forget trends. Let them forget tactics. But they will never forget the man who made discipline look divine, who made clarity contagious, who made presence a weapon. You do not become unforgettable because you sought to be different. You become unforgettable because you refuse to be anything but exact. Exact in your movements, exact in your tone, exact in your code, exact in the way you held your standards, not like preferences, but like sacred commandments. The man who is unforgettable does not lower his voice to be liked. He does not smile when he should be silent. He does not clap when mediocrity is celebrated. He does not explain his solitude because he knows solitude is where giants are constructed. You shine in the crowd not because you ask for attention, but because you withhold your energy like royalty. Because your attention has become so refined, so weaponized, so unwilling to entertain distraction, that being in your presence becomes a mirror for other men to see their own undisciplined reflections. And when people look at you, They do not remember your words. They remember how you never flinched. They remember how your calm swallowed chaos. They remember how you stood when others shrank. They remember how you walked into storms as if you wrote the weather. Because you did. Because every day, for years, you trained in the dark to command the light. You trained your emotion to kneel before principle. You trained your impulse to obey strategy. You trained your attention like a sniper sharpens his scope, not to scatter, but to strike only what matters. That is why they remember you. Not because you tried to be important, but because you became indispensable to the standard of what is possible. The crowd fades. Trends rot. Noise dies. But a man who walks in truth outlives all of them. So I speak now not to the version of you who needed this message, but to the version of you who will carry it like a banner into the next decade of your life. Let the world play its games. Let them debate, argue, compete for scraps. You will build. You will rise. You will command. And you will be remembered not for what you said, but for how your discipline carved silence into structure. You will be remembered not because you were easy to understand, but because you were impossible to ignore. This is your vow now. You will stop performing. You will stop proving. You will stop over-explaining your fire to those who only understand smoke. From now on, your silence will speak. Your presence will decide the temperature of every room. Your stillness will send signals louder than shouting ever could. Your consistency will preach sermons no preacher could rival. Your conviction will not be visible, it will be felt through walls. And one day, not far from now, they will whisper about you in rooms you've never entered. They will study your patterns. They will trace your quotes back to where you once stood in solitude, building yourself when no one clapped, perfecting your craft when no one watched, sharpening your discipline when applause would have ruined it. You will become a monument in motion, not built by marble, but by mastery, not built by chance, but by choice after brutal choice. And when you walk into a room, people will not ask who you are. They will already know, because presence like yours cannot be taught. It must be earned. You will not be remembered for your volume. You will be remembered for your vibration, and it will not fade. Because the man who masters himself leaves behind not just a legacy, he leaves behind a standard that outlives the men who refuse to rise. So shine. Shine like the world forgot how to. Shine like silence deserves to be a weapon. Shine like the disciplined deserve the crown. Shine like your name was forged in the fire of principle and will not be erased by time, because the man who becomes unforgettable does not hope to shine in the crowd. He rises above it and burns forever.